Welcome to the Sixth Wheels Consulting Podcast, dialoguing disability and discussing difference, inclusion, and all abilities in today's world. Now here are your hosts, Matthew Shapiro and Bob Nolly.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so glad you found your way here and you did it without a map. It's Bob Nolly and my good bud, Matthew Shapiro. Matthew, how are you?
How are you, Bob? Good to hear you, sir.
I'm great. I'm sweet. How are you? How's your week been?
It's been hectic, but hectic good. I'm prepping for. I have 3 shows and 3 or 6 shows, I should say, rather, coming up here in the next couple of months. So I'm prepping for all those and working on other projects and trying to grow.
So you say shows there? You mean are they speeches?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm doing. Actually, I have 7 speeches. I forgot one that I'm doing. So I am a very, very busy man, but
nice.
Always love time to share wonderful content with our lovely listeners.
And we're appreciative of all of them, for sure.
Yes, we are. Very much.
So now, there's been news here that everybody, no matter where you live, probably knows about it. We don't really live in Tornado Alley, but boy, we're in Tornado Alley this week.
Yes,
and they were ripping up the west side of town where you and I are. And so, did you experience any difficulties there?
Well, I can tell you, and so for our listeners that don't know, Bob and I both live in Richmond, Virginia, and Richmond is an area that never seems to get tornadoes. But
no, I don't recall it. It's very rare. It is very rare.
But this past week we had, I believe it was on our Tuesday.
Just a couple of nights ago, we had 7 or 8 that touched down.
I think it's 7 or 8 confirmed tornadoes. So we were sheltered in place, and it was kind of scary. I've never been through that before.
Yeah, and it was like Mother Nature, and I always say God has a sense of humor. Tossed us a little curveball because we're looking at Hurricane Florence tracking in here, and Florence actually went right over my parents' house where they're retired down at the beach in Surf City, North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
So we had to fish them out. Everybody that's on socials see me. I've been putting up all sorts of pictures, but they're fine. They're back here in the RVA, and they're fine. Their house survived. There is damage you'd expect. The dunes are washed up pretty well, and all the walkways, are pretty well torn up, but they're fine. Everybody's well, so it's all good.
Sure.
So when we're watching that, originally the forecast was to have that storm slow down at the coast, suck up some more water, and then head in directly for Richmond. And they were forecasting us getting 20 inches of rain over a period of about 4 days. Just as it got to the coast, it hung a left and wiped out most of North Carolina. I mean, lots of flooding down there. In fact, when you go driving down I-64, which is the east-west interstate through Richmond, there's a big, electronic billboard sign, and for the last few days it said, I-95 and all major roads in North Carolina are closed. Do not go to North Carolina.
Just do not go to the Tar Heel State.
That's right. They need to get that cleaned up for basketball season.
That's right.
So we didn't get much. In fact, that weekend we were supposed to get 20 inches of rain. We got like a little spit. That was it.
Sure. And then we decided to get hit.
So the next day, then here come the tornadoes.
6 tornadoes.
It's like God goes, watch this.
I know, exactly.
Hey, not too long ago, we talked about straws. And we talked about the fact that environmentalists were campaigning, suggesting that straws be removed from public places.
Sure.
And we talked a lot about that because there are folks that have a need for straws. And it kind of, it had its 24-hour, it hit the 24-hour news cycle there. But there's more that's happened since then. What have you read or heard?
Yeah, so there's been some updates on that. And first of all, let me say, fantastic job on the segue going from the environment to the environment. So good job to you. great job on the segue.
I'm a trained professional. Don't attempt this at home. Yeah.
Yes, you're a paid professional. That's exactly right. But there, I've been seeing a lot more articles about this whole straw debate, and I've been having more and more conversations with my mom and with other people and I figured I'd kind of update everyone kind of on what I'm hearing and what I'm thinking about the whole straw debate. And, you know, my mom brought to my attention, not only does it affect people with disabilities still, but think about it in this way. You know, most infants are going from sippy cups to they learn to use straws next. So if you are eliminating straws, you're eliminating a tool for an infant to sort of have that next progression in life on how to sip a beverage, right? So that becomes a barrier to an infant's growth. Now, obviously, there are other instances, and there are other straw options that can be used. But as we talked about on our original episode around this topic, those biodegradable straws or metal straws or bamboo straws are all not the cleanliest of options. And so you're running into an issue there. And then the other thing that my mom brought to my attention in our conversations, and it's a really valid point, is hospitals are also places that use straws on a regular basis, because you have your patients who are just coming out of surgery and out from being under anesthesia. And, you know, they usually give you the ginger ale or the juice or the whatever to kind of get you back going. And usually you use a straw for that because it's easier, because you're still sort of under the influence of the anesthesia. So there are two other tremendous industries where, you know, the straw ban affects people. Again, and it was so interesting. I had the privilege of being on a panel earlier this week, virtually, and it was all for meeting planners and meeting planner associations. And my role on that panel was talking about how to make conferences and meeting planner situations more accessible and inclusive to people with disabilities. And the moderator of the panel brought up the whole straw debate.
Oh, that's timely.
Yeah, it was very timely. And, you know, I talked to her about, you know, some of the same stuff that we touched on in the first episode, but, you know, having straws available, maybe not getting rid of them completely, but having straws available, you know, upon request when, you know, somebody with a disability needs it, so that during their cocktail hour at a conference event or whatever, you know, you have them available to you, or, you know, whatever the case may be. I have gone, and my mom has gone so far as to buy like 500 bendy straws that I just now carry with me, because you've got so many of these organizations going away from the straw. What are your thoughts on it? These new additions on it. What, do you think it makes sense? What are you thinking?
This is going to be one of those issues where you have people at either end, at either pole of the end, the people that think the environmentalists are being overreactive, and the environmentalists that say this is a huge amount of waste and a danger to wildlife and any of the other issues. The preference for me, and you know, I'm a moderate in many things, and I'm probably a moderate here, is that if there are other alternatives, let's pursue them, but let's not make them unavailable to those that need them and want to use them.
Sure.
That just strikes me, you know, socially in the worst of veins, I think.
Sure.
But then again, you know, the environmentalists, that I don't want to say they're wrong for their fervor and passion, because that's their job to make people aware of it.
Sure.
Did you hear that? I was actually banging on the table. Yes, I'm not standing in their camp, but somewhere what we try to do here, Matthew, not with just this issue, but with any issue we bring to the forefront here, is to slow down enough, present what we have seen, what we have heard, what the conversation, what the give and take looks like, and examine that and reflect for just a moment and encourage all the listeners to do the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so funny that you bring up, us doing our research and us, reflecting, because just the other day, my mom came to me and she said, I just saw an article I believe it was the USA Today, where the USA Today did a poll of everyone's favorite kind of straw, right? So there was the metal straw, there was the bamboo straw, biodegradable straw, there was the plastic straw, there was the bendy straw, there was all the types of straws that we talked about. If you had to guess, Bob, what straw won?
The question was, what is your favorite kind of straw?
Yes.
It's the bendy straw.
Well, of course. And it would be the normal plastic bendy straw, right? So
yes,
you've got
in the day glow colors. Colors.
Right.
I like the purple and blue ones.
Right. You got to have bright colors. I'm with you there. But I find it ironic that while yes, we're having this debate, and I understand this debate, a national news outlet does this article, and Bob, I don't know if you can maybe find it on your magic information machine that you have.
Sherman and I set the way back for 1842.
But
half the people listening don't even know what I'm talking about there. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, you went over like 90% of our listeners.
That was a dated reference.
But I find it ironic that that you've got this national news outlet and they do this article, and people are saying they still want the bendy, they still want the straw, whether it be the bendy straw or just the regular plastic straw. And so, like, what is it? Like, is it do we not do it? Do we do it halfway? Do we do it all the way? Like, what?
It'll be in moderation. Whatever the solution is, it'll be one for moderation.
Right.
And I mean, just the awareness that happened to me, and of course the awareness we're creating for everybody that's listening. I just went to visit someone was in the hospital. It wasn't critical. They were just in the hospital for a day or two, getting mended. And the nurse came in, and if you've been to the hospital, I hope you haven't been to the hospital, everybody that's listening. But if you have been to the hospital, you know what the deal is. You're lying in that inclined bed, and then there's that little tray that comes up. They put your food on, and when there's no food there, what's on there is that little plastic pitcher. And the nurse will go get you ice in a styrofoam cup. And there's a lid that goes on the top so it doesn't get knocked over and make a mess in the room. And so I poured this person some water, and I picked up the straw and unwrapped it, and I put it through the top of the cup, and I went, there. I feel like I'm taking a stand.
Yeah. So, but right, because I mean, there again, like I was saying a few minutes ago, and so apparently my system or my phone is telling me it's 8:00. I'm sorry, everyone. But again, there's another environment where straws are readily needed, right? And so, and I know I touched on it a few minutes ago, but as we alwa's like to joke and say with the Alanis Morissette reference, isn't it ironic?
Isn't it ironic? Yep.
That's the case. And so what was going? Because you and I had this straw conversation before that incident happened. What was going through your mind in that hospital room when you were putting that straw in that cup of water for that person?
I don't know. I put it in the top of the cup like I was putting the sword back in the stone. It was just like, Yes, this straw is needed. And I was kind of overreacting to it because I'd been so sensitized, and I almost caught myself going, "Do you ever think about this straw?" And this person was feeling a little woozy and not up for that kind of conversation at that point.
Yeah.
But I just went, so I found myself very much on the pro straw of the line. Oh my!
Straw line.
Oh gosh! So, ladies and gents, thanks very much for being a part of this conversation. I've got to tell you, it's time to pay the bills. So I want you to go to Apple Podcast. I want you to go to iTunes, and I want you to find the Six Wheels Consulting Podcast. And there's a button right on that page that says subscribe. We need that. We need you to do that. And I'd really love for you to give Matthew and I, that would be Matthew and me, give Matthew and me write us a review. And if you could give us a nice 5-star review, that would be wonderful. And you do that, we'll give you a shout out, show you some love here. Thanks very much.
Bob, can I also make some exciting announcements for the Six Wheels Consulting Podcast?
Heck yeah.
That our lovely listeners do not know about. For those of you who may not have access to iTunes podcast, we are now also on Stitcher. We are still on SoundCloud, although the SoundCloud might be phasing out a little bit. We're having
some listeners from there, but the most of the traffic is on the Apple iTunes side for sure.
Absolutely. But we want to make this as reticent and as open to any and all listeners as possible. We may be phasing out that SoundCloud subscription. Not sure yet. We're still making some decisions on that.
We will let you know where to find us.
We are working. We are also on Stitcher. But even the even more exciting news, Bob, is that we are now also on Spotify. So please, if
everybody listens to Spotify,
everyone loves Spotify.
Everyone.
So if you are unable to listen to us on iTunes or any of the other amazing platforms that we're on and that we're very grateful to be on, go find us on Spotify. Look up the Six Wheels Consulting Podcast on Spotify. We're on there now. We're just trying to take over the world and get as many listeners as we can to join us in these great conversations. And we're just trying to grow this lovely podcast one listener at a time. So that
we have to do more than one listener at a time.
Okay, I
would like to do more. I'd like to do it 100 at a time. How about that?
Okay, we can do 100 listeners. I like your optimism, Bob. I like your optimism. I'm okay with that.
That's all good. All right, Matthew, you've just had the last word. You have been listening to episode 12 of the Six Wheels Consulting Podcast. This is Bob Nolly, and for my friend Matthew Shapiro, keep thinking inclusion and keep rolling forward. See you next time.
Yes.